just off on a short ride up to the motorcycle centre in Orrell in Wigan, MCO. Just want to have a look at the Morbidelli V1002 motorcycle, catchy name. Adventure style bike. I think seen it online, looks very nice from the front. Seen a review by username Kate just this week. There's a few more cropping up as well. So yeah, just wanted to pop down and have a look. It's out of curiosity more than anything else. I may choose to ride it, so let's have a look at it first. But I also wanted to have a chat about Chinese bikes, hence the title of this video. So let's have a look at it first, see if I can get some video of it as well, and then we'll have a chat on the way back. See you in a minute.
So this is the Morbidelli T1002. This is the road version, not the off-road VX version, I think it's called. You see it's a lovely looking bike, some nice details around the lights there, nice shaped lights. There is a lot of plastic trim on it, but actually everything seems like it's a very good quality to it. So nice looking tank as well, and you know, those crash bars, everything you can see comes as standard. The only optional extra you can have is luggage at about £500, all the hand guards and everything, that screen, all completely standard at £8,000, and it's a nice looking front end as well. I was able to have a very quick perch, and it seems quite comfortable on first seat as well. The detail around the engine and the bike in general is very good, and the switchgear actually on the bars, having separate controls for your seats and your grips, just makes a lot of sense. High spec, fully featured, but very simple as well.
Okay, so let's have a talk about Chinese bikes then. So that Morbidelli was a very nice looking bike, I think. Yeah, at £8,000, given the overall proposition it offers, not just in terms of, you know, the size of the bike, the power of the bike, what it comes with as standard, but also the quality of the product looks pretty good on face value. So you know, everything feels like it's nicely finished. Where does that leave us in terms of Chinese bikes versus the mainstream European bikes? In fact, that's point number one, I guess, is we can't really consider Chinese bikes as a niche or alternative anymore. They are the mainstream now. When I'm talking about Chinese bikes, by the way, we've got obviously Morbidelli I've just been to look at, Moto Morini, CFMoto, Voge, Zontes. These are the ones I'm talking about. Obviously there are others like Keyway and Scenic and others that are kind of cheaper, smaller engine things, but I'm talking about the ones that are now looking to compete with the mainstream bikes. And maybe they're trading on Italian heritage like the Moto Morini or the Morbidelli, or maybe they are kind of the budget alternatives to the European counterparts like the CFMoto and the Voge, where you got CFMoto using KTM engines and components, but offering even better value. I don't consider KTM as bad value, but obviously CFMoto offering something that's kind of stronger proposition still, and Voge using basically the same BMW engine you'll find in their twins like the 900s. So yeah, I think you have to say these are not alternative bikes, they are mainstream bikes. And the other thing is with them, they really aren't just a value proposition anymore. These are actually desirable machines. I mean, this is a couple of the reasons I wanted to make this video, and I wasn't sure whether I would or not because it's a little bit of a contentious topic. Yeah, I thought it was something that was worth talking about, and it's something that's it's a decision factor I'm kind of going through at the moment. Do I exclude these bikes that are Chinese from consideration, and if so, why would I exclude them? Well, obviously the use case for your bike is a big determination on how much value enters into the equation for you, because I mean, it's not my primary mode of transport. I have access to a car, so the bike for me is I want to say toy, but it's not a toy. It's an alternative method of transport, and one that I enjoy using greatly, but it's not something that I am reliant upon. Therefore, my viewpoint on various factors to do with that, in terms of things like running costs, reliability, proximity of dealers, supply chain of parts, things like that, don't really enter into it. And also, of course, price, because it's a luxury for me, it's not a necessity. If it was a necessity, your viewpoint may well be different. But I think it is safe to say there are some very desirable Chinese bikes. Just look at the CFMoto 450. I mean, that actually outshadowed this bike, I think. I've no sales figures. I'll try and find them when I put this up and put them on the screen, but I am pretty sure that given the demand level and the unavailability, the CFMoto has outsold the Royal Enfield, and certainly seemed to create much more hype. If you search on YouTube or the internet in general, you're going to find more on the CFMoto 450 probably than you will on the Himalayan in terms of reviews and praise. So yeah, objects of desirability. So I wanted to make this video for two reasons. One is due to a comment left on one of my other videos, which, to paraphrase, suggested I may be slightly less than patriotic by the factor of the bikes I was considering and currently riding, and not automatically going for the Triumph as the British option, and being patriotic about it. So yeah, that was one reason. But then the other reason was I watched another video from another YouTuber yesterday, actually on a similar, or on the same topic, but with a slightly different tilt, I guess, and that is the mindful motorcyclist Sean put a very good video up on, in terms of exactly how good value these Chinese motorcycles are. It's a very good video. If I'm able to put links up to other people's videos when I put this up, I will put a link up top now. But I mean, he is perfectly right. They are great value, and if you look at the bikes I've just been looking at, £8,000 buys you that Morbidelli. £500 buys you the luggage, and then that is a fully featured bike with, I mean, the spec on it, I'll try and put something up on the screen, but it is a completely capable touring bike with a decent amount of power, and based on the review from username Kate, nice to ride, sounds good, lots to like about it. Okay, some deficits in terms of braking and other bits and pieces which could be better, but we're not saying bad. There are no bad bikes anymore. We're just saying some elements obviously are not class leading, which is fine. Not everything can be class leading. So yeah, the value is there, but I think there are other considerations to this. I've not been up this way before. Let's go this way. I have been this way before. So how are they able to make a product that is technologically comparable, if not better, than its European counterparts, and yet significantly cheaper and still turn a profit? So the concern then becomes, does that mean there is some level of deficit in quality? Do they go through the same rigorous R&D and testing as the other manufacturers? Are the components built to last? Are we going to see the same longevity of these bikes and the components on these bikes as we have done with the previously considered mainstream brands. And there's also the general concern of, if my bike fails, will I be able to find support for it? Will the garage be there? Will there be companies to support it? Will they be able to access the parts? Even as a current bike, who can actually look after it? Because your local garage may not be able to, particularly when these bikes are competing in a way with their technological offerings. They come with a lot of equipment as standard, and that means more complexity and more difficulty in repair. So do they become obsolete faster? So I learned to ride, for example, on a 12-year-old Honda CBF, and I'm sure that is still going now. Some 20-year-old bike, no problem at all, absolutely nothing wrong with it. Will we be able to say the same about the longevity of these Chinese bikes in years to come? And I say we can't answer that question now, which makes it a slightly risky proposition, not necessarily a full value proposition. But again, depends on your use case. If you're buying it outright and keeping it in your garage and using it at weekends and things, is it going to devalue more? Who knows? If you're buying on a PCP, excuse me, bad corner, buying on a PCP and you're going to hand it back at the end of your 2 years or 3 years, or you probably don't care, it probably doesn't matter. But if you are concerned about longer term reliability and what have you, then yeah, that is a consideration you need to make. So that's consideration number one, is the product. So it's an interesting point, isn't it? What happens if you can't access the support you need to keep your bike going and you're depending on it? Is that really then representing good value to you? And of course, there may be some examples of that to come, because, for example, KTM announced that they would no longer be the distributor for the CFMoto products. So where does that leave CFMoto? If they're currently combined in terms of sales and support agencies, do they have to go out and find new people to look after their products? And where does that leave their customers? You buy a bike from, I've been up to Northwest Power Sports, who deal with Husqvarna and CFMoto. Well, if their supply chain for CFMotos will no longer be through Husqvarna KTM, then does that mean that they will no longer support those products? Is unknown. But of course, that value proposition of those products is something that the other manufacturers is going to have to try and compete with, and I think we're already starting to see the signs of that. But there's a question over how they do that, because take Triumph for example, they're owned by the Glor Group, so doubtless they have targets in terms of not just turnover and profitability they have to meet, so they're not going to be in a position to just cut the prices of their bikes to compete with the marketplace. They're going to have to engineer and define the quality to meet the price point. So that means for them to compete with Chinese manufacturers, potentially they would have to reduce the quality. They could of course just choose not to compete, set themselves apart as a premium product. But what about Suzuki? People who have been the previous value proposition, and they now find themselves in a precarious position of being not as desirable as the mainstream, because they are the value ones, or potentially not as desirable, but now significantly more expensive than the new value propositions. But you hope the mainstream manufacturers catch up. And one of the ways I think we're seeing that already is with warranties. So motorcycle warranties have traditionally been quite short. I mean, you're looking at 2 years for BMWs and Triumphs and things, and I think that's a little bit unreasonable and potentially just their profit and risk in their favour, because there's nothing wrong with the quality of the products. They could quite easily offer 3-4 years warranty. In fact, I think something like the Rocket, they're even saying like lifetime warranties now. So why offer a 2-year warranty in the first place? And so, well, risk and profit, that's the only reasons for doing that. So now they don't know, now they may be in a position where they have to compete based on their warranty, whereas previously haven't, and that's where the consumer may win, I guess, because we're going to see the benefit of that directly. But I think we're already starting to see the adjustments. If you look at Honda, their new CB1000 Hornet, CB1000 Hornet, the new Honda CB1000 Hornet is stunk in value, and the quality seems to be there. Everything points to a bike that is really very, very good, but they've managed to engineer that down. So have they engineered the price down through engineering changes, quality changes, or have they just decided to cut their profits to ensure they maintain market share? So is it premium product, premium price, and then everyone else has to go with volume sales? How is the market going to adjust to it? And so time will tell with that, but certainly there's no immediate signs of people like BMW or others softening their prices. KTM obviously is, but that's a very different situation because they are in financial difficulty, so a lot of unsold bikes, they needed to cut their prices. So that's the first point, is the product itself and concerns over quality, longevity, ongoing support, those things. All very real concerns. The second point is a far more complicated one, but this is the one that somebody commented on one of my videos. I don't know whether they later withdrew it or whether it got removed, but the point was that it's unpatriotic, or you're not supporting the local economy if you don't buy British bikes, and it's true. I mean, that is a fair point, but it's not black and white. It's a nuanced consideration, because most EU manufacturers will outsource some level of work to non-European countries. So, BMW, for example, they manufacture in India some of their smaller bikes. Triumph, they do manufacturing in the UK, of course they do, but they've also got plants in India, Brazil, I think Taiwan as well. So it depends on the model as to where it's produced and for where obviously the market is going into. So it's not clear cut, and obviously some of them will use components that are not from the UK, or not from that economic area. So you might have a Chinese motor in a bike that is built in the UK, so assembly may be in the UK, but maybe the components are not. So it's a complicated one, and even there's an argument that buying European bikes puts more money back into the European economy, which the UK is still highly dependent upon the European economy. There is no doubt about that. Buying a BMW or a Husqvarna or a KTM, Ducati, a Moto Guzzi, for example, which is all 100% made and assembled and manufactured in Italy, well, that's supporting the European economy as well. So is that better than buying a Chinese bike? You then got the considerations of it's not just the manufacturing. You've got, for example, I'm on a Royal Enfield Himalayan now. Well, Royal Enfield's, this bike is made in India. It's an Indian company. The profits all go back into India, but they also do R&D and design technology they have in the UK. They have obviously dealer networks in the UK for service and support of those vehicles. And all those things considered, they put in tens of millions into the UK economy every year. So this is very much the ethical and economic considerations of what bike you buy. And for some people that won't even factor into it, which you completely understand. For others, that may entirely decide how and where they buy their bike, which again, completely understand. It's just there are a range of factors which make you choose a bike, and the grading you apply to each one of those points will vary significantly by person and your particular views and budgets, and, as we mentioned before, use case. But yeah, the economic and ethical question is a good one. So as mentioned, obviously Triumph is a big UK employer, although they produce some bikes outside of the UK and they are not 100% British manufacturing. There is still an argument that they put more into the UK economy than, for the other example I used there, Royal Enfield, who, okay, they have some R&D and some stake in the UK economy, but it's not as significant. Chinese bikes aren't bad for the economy, and there's a couple of reasons why they're not bad for the economy. One of those ways is they are still inputting. They are still bringing obviously tax revenue, import revenue, and they will still be having sales and support infrastructure. My only slight hesitance to say that's as strong as the other brands is that they're not creating new infrastructure. They are piggybacking on what already exists. Obviously there's a cost of setting up an operation, and for now all of the Chinese brands are being retailed by manufacturers of other products. Okay, no different to what many other brands. Multi-brand dealers are commonplace because single brand dealers, I think, will struggle to survive in this day and age. It makes total sense. But for the Chinese ones, are they actually putting anything extra into their market, or are they just stealing a slice of someone else's pie? And is the company they're stealing that slice of the pie from a better bet for the European UK economy? So that's the kind of ethical dilemma, if you like. The flip side of that argument is the way they could be good, or maybe they are being good, is that if they're opening up part of the market that didn't previously exist, if the demand for their small capacity bikes and cheaper bikes is because they're opening up motorcycling to a subset of people that otherwise wouldn't have bought bikes, then that's a really huge positive if they are genuinely increasing the motorcycle market for the UK, for Europe. So obviously a bit of market competition as a consumer is a good thing, and it can drive improved value. But as mentioned earlier, it can also be a slightly negative thing if that's drive for value then is at the detriment of quality. So the segments of the markets the Chinese bikes are trying to take on are very much those smaller capacity, but also the adventure market, and those are the areas where there isn't the same brand loyalty. Obviously, outside of things like the bikes that have the cult followings, the BMW GSs and the Africa Twins and those kind of bikes, the mid-range adventure bike segment is not a particularly loyal one, and people do change around, and there's a lot of very good products available. So that's where bang for buck and the value proposition becomes a real temptation. So those low value bikes and those adventure touring bikes, so you can see why the Chinese makers would go after those first. And if they succeed, if they demonstrate that they're moving the game forward, they're bringing quality well engineered high technology products with good longevity and build quality, reliability, everything else that goes with it, and with good support, they prove they're bringing that to the UK market, then obviously they're here to stay. And that won't be the same for all of the brands that are out there, but I'm sure there will be some that stick. So let's say you are making the ethical decision then. You're not going to buy a Chinese bike, but you're going ultra ethical, and you say, well, I'm not even going to buy a European bike because I want to buy the most British thing I can. Where does that leave you? What are the options? And the answer is not many. But you've got Triumph, which mentioned before. Obviously they've got manufacturing in the UK, they've got a lot of interest in the UK in general. So I think we can safely say that Triumph is the standout investor in terms of the UK, because they've got an 800 strong, probably more than that, 800 to 900 people involved in R&D and engineering, and then because of the impact that has up and down supply chains, local industries to to supply that plant, and that's in addition to the widespread of dealers and service support they have for those bikes as well. So yeah, they are number one, I think, as far as the UK industry goes. I think we could probably all agree. But it might surprise you to see that actually I think Honda is the second biggest in terms of numbers of people employed in the UK. You've got the likes of Kawasaki, who actually, so when I say manufacturer, they don't manufacture here, they assembled some of their 650 bikes in the UK. So there's those factors to consider as well. You've then got BMW. I mean, they have a centre in Farnborough, which I believe is more than just BMW Motorrad bikes, but there are around 200 of those people who are focused on the Motorrad element, so they're not just sales and support, and obviously they have a big sales and support infrastructure in the UK. But then you have things like Norton. That is 100% British. They build, design, everything is engineered here, but you know, it's niche. It comes at a very different price point, and what's more, it's a risky proposition because, you know, the company's been in trouble before for various reasons. CCM, you know, a small volume niche manufacturer based up in Bolton, making some absolutely fabulous bikes, but around a 600cc platform that are very much joy machines. These are not practical bikes by any stretch of the imagination. Absolutely amazing bikes. I would very much like one, but you're not going to go in there to get your next touring bike or commuter. BSA, I mean, it features on that list because they're Birmingham based and they are, you know, building and manufacturing. The Gold Stars, I believe, are built in the UK. They're Indian owned though, so I mean the profits aren't going back into the UK economy, the profits will go elsewhere, but they are creating jobs and industry, as we mentioned, up and down the economy. That has a positive impact, but again, it's not that it's niche, but they are building back up, I guess, so it's not a big operation currently. They are not making tens of thousands of bikes every year, and I think then you've got considerations like new BSA Scrambler looks absolutely fantastic, but my understanding is that's not going to be built in the UK. You then got, that was fantastic timing, you've then got Herald. I mean, Herald are, I believe, West Midlands based, making some absolutely cracking little small capacity, you know, 125s. I think they go up to a 500, is it a Brute or something like that? I'll put it up on screen now anyway. But it's some really lovely bikes, but again, not that they're niche, but they don't cater to all markets. You couldn't say that's a viable proposition for everybody, and I'm sure I'll have to double check this and I'll cut it out if I'm wrong, but I'm sure though their current bikes are UK built and engineered, that hasn't always been the case. They have, for some of their models in the past, rebranded or used Chinese componentry with the Herald labels on them. So yeah, even still then, not clear cut. So I think BSA were West Midlands. I think Herald were Cambridgeshire based. But anyway, then you had Mutt, and I think everything's Midlands. I think Mutt were Midlands, but obviously they went into administration back in February, I think it was. And not all of their offerings were British anyway. I mean, I think their smaller capacity bikes were engineered and UK built. I think their larger ones, I forget the name of the models now, but they had some 400cc adventure bikes, which looked really good value. But I believe they were rebranded scenic bikes, so they were Chinese bikes with a UK brand on them. So yeah, so if you want to buy a UK bike, your choices are extremely limited, and it is a bit of a minefield, but it does seem the comment was fair, and the most appropriate thing to do would be to buy a Triumph. But then that's not the only factor, is it? You have to like the bike, you have to want the bike, you have to be able to access the service and support. But should I choose a Triumph? Well, yeah, I mean, that would seem to be the case, but to get a like-for-like bike, I would have to spend substantially more, and I may be paying substantially more for a bike that I don't like as much as the cheaper alternative, and that's where it gets very sticky. So it really is a minefield. And I mean, for me, because I forget now how much of our export goes into Europe or how much we import from Europe, but it's, I mean, you're talking in the, I think it's in the 40% range in terms of our economic tie into Europe. So if I buy that BMW or that Husqvarna, is that as good as buying the Triumph for the UK economy? I don't know the answer to that question, and it's something that I guess everybody has to reach their own conclusions on. So yeah, I think it matters where they're made, but I think it matters more where those profits goes. And I think above all else, I think the rider experience and preference is always going to outweigh those two factors. So I think we'll argue forevermore on whether you should choose a certain bike, but I think the reality is people will choose the bike they want. A motorbike for many people is a heart over head purchase. As we mentioned, there's different UK use cases, so I think it's not just the segments of the markets that will dictate how successful Chinese bikes are in terms of what kind of bike, but also what kind of buyer. Before, if the Chinese brands are opening up motorcycling to people who wouldn't otherwise be biking, then fantastic, that is absolutely brilliant, and long may that last. If however they're just bringing us attractive looking, slightly dubious quality motorcycles for the mainstream, then I think we would be ill-advised to adopt them with open arms. But that's just what I think, and all of this is just my thoughts and views. These aren't hard facts. I may have things wrong. Please tell me if I have information wrong, and please tell me your thoughts. I'm really keen to know what everyone thinks on this. I think it is a contentious topic. Maybe something people haven't thought about, maybe it's something that people are completely focused on and are going to tell me, what, are you stupid? Why would you even consider a Chinese bike? Clearly a bad quality. I genuinely don't know. So putting this out there, really keen to see your viewpoints. And yeah, above all else, thank you very much for watching. So please do like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video. Also, by the way, if you do ride a Triumph and you want to know whether your particular Triumph was made in the UK, I believe there is a way to tell from the VIN number. Apparently, I think if it starts with the TIN, then it came out of Hinkley. So, oh, also incidentally, after visiting the Morbidelli showroom, wow, Motorcycle Centre Laurel, they sent me through the finance deal. So with £2,000 down, you can have one of those Morbidellis for about £89 a month, which really is very good. And consequently, what that means is after 3 years, they're saying they're forecasting the retained value to be around £4,000, which, you know, okay, take away the VAT, you're looking at, you know, over 50% of the value retained there. So that's actually quite impressive performance. So clearly they've got faith in those bikes to be offering PCP deals like that, or they're trying to influence the market, one way or the other. But I'm off home for Chinese takeaway. Oh no, wait, Indian. Oh god.